Now we start to see a change as well with coming out of the Peace of Westphalia, and even before the Peace of Westphalia, you have new monarchs getting created. And the key to these new monarchs is nobility is losing powers, and these monarchs are gaining powers through two things: taxes and armies. The armies are going to be they're going to be a part of the monarchy now, and that government power is only going to grow. The French, the Spanish, and the English, their armies are only getting bigger. The nobility can only really take care of a small army. Think feudalism. Feudalism, really, each feudal lord had a little small army, and that's not the case anymore. They're getting too big. The nobles are getting put down, and they're going to be subjects to the monarchs just like anybody else. Spain is, and then the other part of that, taxes. Spain's going to do a sales tax. England's getting monies through royal services and fines. The nobility is losing power, and the monarchs are gaining power. And there are going to be two types of governments that primarily form. One is a constitutional monarchy. You can see their characteristics here. Britain and the Netherlands are primarily going to have those. And the second type of one is an absolute monarchy, France and Spain. And their characteristics are here. So a constitutional monarchy, the key thing is this. It's great for when you have a lot of different types of people. The rule of law is still the rule of law, centralized governments, etc. But the difference between constitutional monarchy and absolute monarchy is this bullet. The power of the king is shared with parliament. There isn't just one entity. There isn't just the king and the king rules alone. No, the king has to share power here. King has to share power. The other part here is notice that merchants flourish. Oh, look, Britain and Netherlands. Oh, wait, they have all the big trading companies of the world. Well, that's partially because they are supported by the government. Britain and the Netherlands do a great job with that. As opposed to an absolute monarchy. Divine rights. It's my way or the highway. King rule or queen. It's their rule. It's my way or the highway. There is no parliament to talk to. It's everything is the state. We'll talk about more of those in a second, but it is divine right. I get my power because God gave it to me. So here we go. Let's do examples of each. Let's talk about England first. The English Civil War. Here's how we're going to get to that point where it is a monarchy. If we think back, really starting with the Magna Carta, that the power of the king is slowly but surely going to go down. Okay, so King Charles I is going to try to put taxes in place without Parliament's approval throughout the early 1600s. There are multiple people against him, whether that is the Scots, and a new group of people are going to get formed, and they're called the Puritans. They're extreme Calvinists, so they're definitely Protestant. I mean, so the religious aspect to this, there is some, but not a ton, where the Anglican Church favors this hierarchy, the monarchy basically, where the Puritans are going to oppose it. And so what's going to happen is, the king is going to raise an army, and the parliament is going to raise an army, which the Puritans are a part of here. People loyal to Charles are known as royalists or cavaliers as well. And the parliament, they raise their army called the Roundheads, and the Scottish are going to help them. And it's crazy that you literally have the king fighting parliament. Okay, and so Oliver Cromwell is going to be the leader of the Puritan army, and it's a long story of how they get there, whatever, but Oliver Cromwell is eventually going to win, and Charles gets executed in 1649. And Oliver Cromwell, then he agrees basically to take over, and he's supposed to give people rights. Doesn't happen. Cromwell takes power and basically becomes a dictatorship. He would not let people trade foreignly without the approval of him. He basically is trying military rule. And he gets kicked out. And he gets kicked out. He's throwing people in prison without any reason. And so he gets kicked out, and they put Charles back in place. And Charles had promised religious toleration and forgiveness to those who had acted against him and his dad. And so, hey, we're back. Hi. This doesn't sit well. This doesn't sit well with people. And so what's going to happen is infighting is going to resume because the monarchy's back in place. Yeah, we got rid of Cromwell, but so what? And so the infighting resumes, and people are not happy. And so, all right, side note here. This whole time, England had a rivalry going with the Netherlands. You had the Indian Ocean trade stuff going on, just rivalry in general. Marriages are changing, and marriages between the royal families. France is growing more and more in power, and the nobility is scared. The nobility is scared. And so what happens is Mary is the daughter of the king, is the daughter of the king, and basically she marries William of Orange, who is Dutch. And what happens is the nobility basically go say, "Hey, William, um, come invade our country." And William sails across the English Channel, lands, and then marches across England and gains followers as he goes. Never has to fire a gun. Never has to fire a gun. And when William of Orange and Mary get there, get to London itself, they sign what is known as the English Bill of Rights. They sign the English Bill of Rights, which basically looks at free election and free speech within the Parliament. It's the foundation of limited government. They have to share powers with the William of Orange and Mary are going to be the new monarchy, and they are actually co-monarchs. They have to share power with Parliament. It builds on the Magna Carta, and now this is the moment with this glorious revolution, because there's no guns fired whatsoever, where the monarchy will be of equal power of Parliament, and just as time goes on, there's going to be less and less power for Parliament. Or, I'm sorry, less and less power for the king, and the power of the monarchy just grows. So, a quick synopsis again. Go back. Oh, wrong side. There we go. King and Parliament go to war with each other over religious elements. Over taxes and religious elements. The king loses. The new guy, Cromwell, comes in. He rules like a dictator. So they want the old monarchy back. Nobility is afraid of this. They get Netherlands basically to invade, and they take over in the Glorious Revolution without a shot fired. And you have now the king and the monarchy and Parliament sharing power. Now, this is very different than what we see in other parts. Let's talk about France. France is not a constitutional monarchy. They are an absolute monarchy. Their leader is King Louis XIV. King Louis XIV didn't want happen to him what happened to King Louis XIII. King Louis XIII had continued a tradition of a long time of France having bad kings. He was weak. He didn't have a lot going on, he's not very good, to put it bluntly. And Cardinal Rousseau, who you see here, is one of the people when Louis XIII dies and Louis XIV takes over, who's going to start to strip away power from the nobility. Note it's a cardinal. That means he's a high-ranking official in the Catholic Church. Now, Louis XIV takes over when he's 4. So they have regents basically who are ruling in his place. He's officially still ruling, but people are making the decisions for him. Cardinal Rousseau is one of them. The nobility starts to rebel a little bit, and as King Louis XIV gets to be a little bit older and Cardinal Rousseau slowly starts taking more and more and more power from them, King Louis XIV is going to become the most powerful the most powerful king in Europe. And he does this by basically writing new laws, building a huge bureaucracy. And he also does it through building the Palace of Versailles. And it's amazing. King Louis XIV is known for a lot of things. One of them, he's a sun god. Why? He changed the symbol of the French monarchy from a flower to the sun. Why? Flowers die, the sun is there, it sees everything, etc. He goes by and he basically changes the law code, and you can sum it up this way. One king, one law, one faith. You're going to be Catholic and you're going to like it. If you're not Catholic, you might as well leave, and some group of people called the Huguenots do. The third way, is he builds a monstrous palace, the Palace at Versailles. It's a royal hunting lodge. He moves the entire court there. The nobility has to go there to see him. In the past, French kings have gone to see the nobility, or the kings went to the monarch. No more the case. He would basically force everybody to go, and if you weren't at his parties, you wouldn't get favors when he needed to. And the Palace of Versailles is massive. It's the largest building in Europe at the time. It's 230 acres, 1,400 fountains. They bring in 25,000 fully grown trees. All the prominent nobility move there, and it's just huge. So you can see, here's some pictures of it. It's massive. It I mean, look at all this gold. It is still to this day. I mean, it is just over the top luxury. It is over the top luxury by every way, shape, and form. Louis XIV, he is keeping his eye on the nobility all the time. He's taking power away from them. It is him. His other really important phrase, which you know, is "I am the state." There's nothing else. He is the state. All decisions come from him. He saw himself, and this is true of anyone with divine rights, as basically God's voice on earth. God's voice on earth. I mean, it is crazy. Now, he has this huge standing army too, and they're going to fight wars throughout this time period. He's going to build new roads. He's going to build canals. He's controlling the state industry. France is the power. I mean, he's ruling from 1643 to 1715. He is the power. One last thing he does to take away power from the nobles, he creates new ones. You have enough money, you could be a noble. This is actually going to be one of the reasons France bankrupts itself in the long run here, is that he makes people pay to become a noble. First, he gets more money. Second, the nobles are old nobles are going to lose power because there's new nobles, but the new nobles lose a lot of money because of how high the price was, but people wanted to be nobles because of the prestige associated with that. All right, last example. Last example is Russia. The Romanov dynasty is going to be formed. The first great leader and our biggest one here, realize first of all they're called Tsar. It comes from the Roman Caesar, and they're going to be expanding their boundaries. They go mid 14th century, they're going to move into the Arctic, Caspian Sea, into Siberia, etc. Most important leader we need to be aware of is Peter the Great, 1682 to 1725. His whole thing is he wants to westernize Russia and bring it in and modernize it. He brings a bunch of Russian observers to Germany, Netherlands, and England. Europeans don't really like it, but Peter loves what he sees. He drafts peasants as soldiers. He's going to modernize their military. He sends aristocrats back to the Western Europe so they can learn math and geometry so they could fire cannons better. And he wants to the whole thing. He wants to transform. He makes all the church leaders shave their beards. Now you might be thinking, why the heck is that important? Well, because he made them do it. And it's a sign that he has more power over the church now. He builds a new capital in St. Petersburg. Notice it's St. Petersburg. It's named after him. And so he is going crazy. He's going crazy. I mean, in that he wants to westernize everything. Everything. The Russian Orthodox Church is going nuts about him. The whole theme, here's your 3 W's for him. Westernization. Hey, we're going to build a better navy. We're going to figure out how to weaken the power of the church by making me more powerful. We need warm water ports. That is the other thing. He wants to really join the international trade scene. He does that with building St. Petersburg and, again, constructing that navy. The last person to talk about is a successor of his, and it is Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great came from basically the Holy Roman Empire, the eastern part of it, and she gets into power basically and does the opposite of what Peter the Great did. Peter the Great took power from the nobles. She actually gives power back to the nobles. And she's okay with this because basically she's trying to put down rebellion throughout. She isn't well liked. She's not well liked by anybody. She gave the nobility a lot of power after Peter took it from them, so the nobility like it. The poor people don't, though. So you're going to start to see rebellion. And so she actually signs laws that have the nobility as one class and the serfs are another class. And just huge division now throughout. And it doesn't really work. She does some other things where, yes, you're going to have legal differences, but hey, nobility, you can't torture them, you can't beat them, you can't mutilate people. Now, it doesn't really work very well, but that is basically the system that is created here. So what do you got to know from this slide? There's these sets of slides, a lot here. You should be able to know the characteristics of an absolute and constitutional monarchy. You'll be able to do a little compare and contrast the two. Basics of a constitutional monarchy, of how it gets formed in England, and then basics of an absolute monarchy, especially Louis XIV, and especially Peter the Great.